Good morning, everyone. Hope you're having a happy holiday season. So, two things before we begin. First, a bit negative, but turning very positive, is Bob last weekend was admitted to the hospital and had a problem. They took a while to figure out how to help him out, but they have, and he was released from the hospital, I guess, Tuesday night or Wednesday morning. I talked to him this morning. He's doing much better, says he feels a whole lot better. So he'll be back with us after the holidays. Second, I want to announce that we have a new Attorney General person in our office who some of you may already know, Heidi Dutterer. We want to welcome her and wish her the best. So nice to see you, Heidi.
Thank you, Senator.
Okay, let's have a roll call.
Superintendent Chaudhary.
Here.
Secretary Churchill.
Here.
Ms. Eberhardt.
Here.
Mr. Gibbons is absent. Ms. Lala.
Here.
Mr. Lombardo is absent. Secretary McCord.
Present, thank you.
And Chair Casemeyer.
Here, thank you.
You have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so there are no revisions to the agenda and there's no public comment. Later in the program, we'll have some statements from some of the counties regarding appeals processes.
Mr. Chair, we do have one revision to the agenda. We need some additional time to resolve project issues on item 5, the Cecil County FY22 CIP revision. And we're just requesting to withdraw the item until a future meeting.
Okay, so we won't be dealing with number 5 today. Cassandra, you want to take us through the consent agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chair. So you have 3 items for approval: the minutes, contract awards, and then revisions to contract awards. I can stand for questions, or you can take those all in one motion.
We'll do them all in one motion, I think, unless somebody has a question about something. So we do.
Mr. Chair, Gloria Lawler.
Okay. Here a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Cassandra?
And you have one informational item, Mr. Chair, an easement for St. Mary's County. It's a very small easement, less than 1 acre, and I can stand for questions if there are any, or we can move to item 2.
Any questions about the St. Mary's easement? Okay, let's move to item 2.
Okay. I'm going to share.
Excuse me?
Go ahead.
I said the last couple of meetings, we're trying to have some very short briefings to keep us up to speed and educate us on how we really function. And so today, Cassandra has another a little briefing to give us, to take a few minutes. So thank you, Cassandra.
Of course, Mr. Chair. And this is timely because the next item you'll be voting on is the 75% capital improvement program. So the capital improvement program is typically the state's largest school construction grant program. Of course, that excludes the recent addition of the Built to Learn Act. The capital improvement program totals around $280 million per year on average in recent years. Funding is allocated in the state's capital budget and has been annually since 1972. The CIP is also the state's most flexible program. It can be used for almost any category of project, including newer replacement schools, total renovations, limited renovations, single system projects, additions, and more. As you'll see in a couple of slides, the CIP process does take over a year for each annual cycle, so the annual funding cycles overlap. But this slide describes that process at a very high level. Basically, the LEAs identify and prioritize their project needs, which are approved by the school board, and then they're submitted to the IAC. But in order to be eligible, the county also has to provide us a notification that they support the projects. The IAC staff reviews the projects for eligibility criteria, and then we assign a recommended status, which you'll see in the next agenda item. The final allocations are based just on the total eligible funding amount in the priority order that's assigned by the LEA. So we look at how much money there is, and we just go down their list of eligible projects in priority order. The IAC is statutorily required to take action at 3 incremental stages of the CIP. First, what you'll do today, the IAC is required to approve 75% of the governor's preliminary funding amount in December. Then before March 1st, the IAC is required to make recommendations for allocations to the General Assembly for 90% of the governor's submitted budget. And finally, after May 1st, the IAC is required to approve 100% of the funding that was included in the annual capital budget. I mentioned earlier that each CIP cycle's activities take over a year, and you can see that in this timeline. There are specific CIP activities like the submission of the requests in October or the revision of those requests that are due in November. And then there are supporting activities like submission of the Educational Facilities Master Plan, which should support the projects that are submitted in the CIP, but is also more comprehensive than one single fiscal year worth of projects. Eligibility for the CIP is pretty broad. The projects have to cost at least $200,000. If the projects are in existing building, then only elements of that building that are older than 50 years are eligible typically. And in order to replace an existing building, it has to be supported by a feasibility study. The Built to Learn Act of 2020 made planning and design costs eligible for state participation. The IAC subsequently adopted regulations clarifying the kinds of planning and design funds that are eligible. And this is very broad. It includes everything from the initial feasibility studies, ed specs, equipment specifications, design, construction management, and more. In addition to the CIP funding that's allocated in the budget, there's also an additional enrollment growth and relocatable classroom funding, which is allocated as an add-on to the CIP. EGRC funding is intended to provide additional funding to LEAs that have either an average of 250 or more relocatables over a 5-year period, or that have a 5-year average enrollment growth that exceeds the statewide percentage by 1.5 times. $40 million is required for EGRC annually through fiscal year 2027. And at that point, it will double to $80 million. Eligible projects have to be under contract within 2 years of allocation. And the procurement must, of course, be compliant with state procurement laws and regulations. And the IAC makes payments either as reimbursements to the LEA, or if the LEA requests it, we can actually make those payments directly to contractors. And the instructions to apply for the CIP are released annually in July. The IAC staff receives these applications over SharePoint, and the IAC also has the authority to amend an LEA's CIP at any time. So typically this would occur when an LEA has some additional funding as a result of a project costing less or because of a canceled project. And with that, Mr. Chair, I can stand for questions. Arabia is on the call. She's our funding programs manager. She can also stand for questions. And when you're ready, she'll present the 75% recommendations for the IAC's consideration.
Does anyone have any questions about the presentation Cassandra just made? So I just want to confirm one thing, that when the county makes a request, the school board and the governing authority, executive or commissioners, they have to be in agreement.
That's correct, Mr. Chair. If we don't receive notice that the county supports the request submitted by the Board of Education, then it's not eligible for state funding.
Very interesting. Okay. No other questions? Thank you, Cassandra, for doing that. I found it valuable. Okay, we're going to move to item 3. What we just sort of talked about was this is the meeting where we approve 75% of the CIP, and Arabia is going to lead us through that process. Arabia, thank you.
Yes, good morning. The 75% CIP recommendations being presented today are based on a preliminary capital budget of $208 million. While this figure represents $72 million less than originally anticipated, other funding sources were available to help LEAs meet their immediate school construction needs. To maximize the effectiveness of all the IAC's funding sources, staff, along with their local counterparts, are working to examine projects from a district-wide facility needs perspective, to determine the level of funding needed for each project, to have boots on the ground to examine the various building systems to determine whether they meet their useful life, as well as to come up with a plan of action when necessary to ensure a system failure does not occur. We're also working with local school officials to establish and piggyback on preventive maintenance practices that could be shared and implemented. These strategies position Maryland to become recognized as a national leader in public school construction in coming years. With increased IAC staffing, there's a strong presence, motivation, and willingness to make sure we each do our parts to ensure that every student is stationed in environmentally healthy facilities. The LEAs were afforded the ability to wager their bets by applying for funding for projects through distinctly different funding sources, primarily the CIP, Healthy Schools Facility Fund, and the Built to Learn program. While this was a win-win for the LEAs, it also posed some hurdles for staff. Administratively, closer attention has to be paid to ensure that projects are only funded through one program. For instance, on the project detail spreadsheet, Carroll County submitted 2 projects through the CIP and the Healthy Schools Facility Fund. Party number 3, Spring Garden Elementary HVAC, was funded through the Healthy Schools Facility Fund and is correctly shown as a D for that reason. However, party number 5, Westminster High Windows, was also funded through the Healthy Schools Facility Fund and is incorrectly shown as a B, deferred due to fiscal constraints. While this error has been corrected, it is an example of how these recommendations and projections require repeated evaluation and updates. Other administrative updates to the project detail spreadsheets include a correction to the total estimated cost for the Town Creek HVAC project in St. Mary's County. In Washington County, a correction was made to the amount of funding requested for party number 7, North Hagerstown High Windows and Masonry project. If we can now move to the summary of recommendations on the next page, I can walk through that.
Go ahead.
Okay. In accordance with the governor's preliminary capital budget, staff developed target allocations based on a 10-year average. You may notice that these figures funding figures are not shown in column B and C for Somerset and Worcester County, as no requests were submitted as of October 4th. Funding targeted for these counties have been applied to other projects around the state. While we understand that each LEA's needs are great, funding has been allocated as fairly as possible and in some cases above their target allocation. For the 75% round, we're recommending 10 projects for planning approval. Column E is shown slightly different than in the past. It provides a breakdown of the number of projects being recommended and projected to be recommended by the 100% round. The funding team does expect to make additional corrections and evaluations over the next couple of months. Therefore, the projected data currently shown is subject to change. The 75% recommendation is reflected in column F and totals $156 million. The remaining columns are projections for February and May rounds. It is possible that the $40 million anticipated for the enrollment growth and relocatable classroom initiative will not be completely allocated this year, as a majority of the high priority projects in Baltimore County are for major construction and currently designated to receive funding through the Built to Learn program. Should the issues with the Suitland project in Prince George's County be resolved prior to the 100% round, there is FY22 and 23 EGRC funds that can be used. Also in FY22, the IAC set aside $7 million for projects requiring additional funding. For fiscal year 2023, those funds were applied to LEAs across the state to make every effort to avoid the partial funding of maintenance capital projects. We have several LEAs that have submitted written testimony, which can be found in the supplemental pages at the end of the agenda. A number of the LEAs are here to present to the IAC. If it's the pleasure of the commission, we can move to those presentations, and then they will, after they're complete, I can stand for questions and read the motion for approval.
Okay, thank you, Arabia.
Thank you. Before
we go to the presenters, does anyone have any questions for Arabia, what she talked about? So we have testimony written testimony from four counties: Baltimore County, St. Mary's, Washington, and Wacomico. But in person, we have quite a few who want to make a presentation. Cassandra, you want to recognize and introduce those people?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, first I want to let you know that Cecil has actually dropped out of the presentations today. They did submit written testimony, which you can find in your supplemental materials. So from Calvert County, we should have Dr. Daniel Curry and Shashita Warner.
Welcome.
Thank you. And
Go ahead.
Curry here, and let me make sure, is Shachita on?
There you go. You can begin when you want, when you're ready.
Okay. I'm just want to confirm that my partner is here.
Yeah,
I'm here.
She's here.
Dr.
Okay, there I hear now.
It took me a
Okay.
second to find the unmute button.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, thank you, folks, for we're bringing you greetings from Calvert County,
Thank you.
and Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy December, Happy Holidays. Everyone's ready for a break real soon, I'm sure.
Thank
So
you.
2021, for all of us, not just all of us in Calvert County, but all of us in Maryland and all of us across the country, has been very unique. But we have a pretty resilient staff in Calvert County, and we've continued to serve our families and our students as best we can, and we think we're doing a pretty good job of it. Highlight a few of our projects most recently and some of the other things that have been happening in Calvert County. With the pandemic, it's brought over 106,000 masks to be purchased for schools to use, almost 5,000 units of hand sanitizer, almost 1.7 million sanitary wipes, and more than 2,000 plastic barriers. We've invested in 440 air scrubbers, something that I never even heard of until the pandemic. And we are in the process of upgrading the ventilation in our health suites and several of our school buildings using ESSER 3 funds. Now, we were a future-ready school district, so in 2020, the fall of 2020, we were ready to go and had already budgeted for one computer for each of our children, grades 3 through 12. And so we were able to hit the ground running pretty quickly with the need to go all virtual. We offered a virtual academy this year for those who still might want to stay that way for grades 3 through 12, and we have 230 students enrolled in that. Equity has been a high priority. It's been one of the 5 priorities in our strategic plan for the last 5 years. Student achievement and access for all is really important to us. Our board is one of the few boards of education to have an anti-racism policy. And we're reviewing and assessing our minority hiring practices right now with an outside vendor. Lastly, we have celebrated some of our work that is in partnership with you. In October, we celebrated the dedication of the new Northern High School, which was a 4-year project of construction next to the old high school, demolition and more construction. And in November, then we had a groundbreaking for Beach Elementary School, which we're very excited about. We can't embark on either of these 2 celebrations without partnership and funding with the IAC. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our Director of School Construction, Dr. Shachita Warner. She's going to discuss our projects and the appeal.
Thank you, Dr. Curry. Good morning. We appreciate the opportunity to appear before members of the IAC today to discuss and review Calvert County's funding requests for the FY 2023 Capital Improvement Program. There are 3 projects that encompass our FY 2023 CIP. We appreciate the IAC staff's 75% recommendations to fully fund our Priority 1 and Priority 2 projects. Furthermore, we understand that budgetary constraints are the reason that our Priority 3 project request has been deferred. Today, we'd like to take the opportunity to highlight the importance of all of these projects, not only to assure the level of support currently projected, but also to request that you reconsider funding them all fully. Of the 3 requests, 2 are systemic renovations focused largely on HVAC. We've always known that systemics are a key component to operating our buildings effectively and efficiently, but never has it been more apparent than now, as we all know. In light of COVID-19, we must assure that our HVAC systems are fully operational and sufficient outside air and ventilation is delivered within instructional spaces. Our first project request is for the second and final year of funding for the Beach Elementary School replacement project. We appreciate the IAC's commitment to this project, evident through the funding provided in FY 2022. As Dr. Curry mentioned earlier, we recently broke ground on the Beach Elementary School project and expect completion by the end of calendar 2023. Last year, state funding for the project consisted of $10,666,000, and this year we respectfully request the full balance of funding in the amount of $4,189,000 so we may complete the project. Our second request is a systemic renovation project at Calvert Elementary School consisting of the replacement of HVAC equipment dating back to the 1964 original building and the 1974 addition. The project scope includes replacement of the 1964 roof, which is original to the building. The existing equipment and roof that encompass the project scope are 47 to 57 years old at this point, well past their remaining useful life. The new HVAC equipment will be energy efficient and operate via direct digital controls, or DDC. This project was requested as a priority 3 within our FY 2022 CIP and received $218,495 of the $1,487,180 requested. We've included it again within our FY 2023 CIP and respectfully request the balance of the state share in the amount of $1,268,685. Our third and final request, which we are appealing today, is an HVAC systemic renovation project at Plum Point Middle School. The 3 DX rooftop units, 11 air handling units, and 100 VAV boxes are original to the 1992 building, experience frequent problems, and do not adequately control humidity. The VAV boxes are non-fan powered, pneumatically controlled, and have been repaired numerous times. Because they're unable to be retrofitted, they'll be replaced with the project scope. All new equipment will be energy efficient and operate via DDC controls. Due to the large scope, the project will be phased over 2 summers and requires a total of $4,432,000 with a total state allocation of $2,425,920. Our funding request for the first year is $1,895,920. This project was included as a priority 5 in Calvert's FY 2022 CIP, but was deferred by the IAC due to fiscal constraints. We respectfully request that reconsideration be given to funding this critical project with the current CIP cycle. Design is currently 50% complete, and assurance of funding would allow that the project be bid in ample time to procure equipment and begin phase 1 work in summer 2023. In closing, we appreciate the support the IAC has given to Calvert County in the past. Your continued support will ensure that Calvert County can provide safe, healthy, and well-maintained facilities for our staff and students. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Calvert County officials? I want to thank you for taking the time to appear. Have a great day.
Thank you, too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cassandra, who do we have next?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next, we have Prince George's County. We have Dr. Monica Goldson, the CEO, and we have Sean Matlock, who's the Director of Capital Programs.
Good morning.
Welcome. Morning.
Good morning. Thank you. Good morning, members of the Interagency Commission and staff. My name is Dr. Monica Goldson. I'm the CEO for Prince George's County Public Schools, and I am here today with our staff members, Mr. Sean Matlock, who's the Director of Capital Programs. Thank you for inviting us this morning and for the 5 projects that received an A or U status with the recommendation for full funding. We are looking forward to delivering these projects to our county students and appreciate the $1.8 million that funds the balance of our Priority 1 and Priority 2 schools, respectively, the William Wirt Middle School Replacement Facility and the new Glen Ridge Area Facility. We are also grateful for the $21.9 million that fully funds the 3 systemic projects that represent our Priority 10, 11, and 12 in this fiscal year 2023 CIP. However, we are here to appeal our Priority 4 project, the critically needed modernization of the Suitland High School campus, which is currently recommended for 0 of the $27.5 million requested state dollars. The U status indicates outstanding issues, although no issues were identified in the CIP issues letter from the IAC dated December 2nd, 2021. This project is distinctively important to our county and is scheduled to begin construction in the summer of 2022, dependent on state funding. The existing Suitland High School facility houses the Center for Visual and Performing Arts, as well as more than 1,500 students in their comprehensive high school program. The 1950s area main building and the Creative and Visual Performing Arts converted middle school building are both in poor condition. Temporary structural remediation work was recently completed with local funds to ensure the safety of the students and staff until the new building is constructed. Delays in funding approval ultimately delay occupancy of the new building and demolition of this structurally compromised building. Furthermore, our total request for fiscal year 2022 is $51.3 million, and the recommended $19.3 million plus $4.5 million in enrollment growth and relocatable classrooms funding is significantly less than our 10-year average allocation for 3 years in a row. Because of this, each year our 10-year average continues to decline, even though we have been recognized as one of the local education agencies with the greatest need. The annual allocation should be closer to $40 million each year, plus the additional enrollment growth and relocatable classrooms, which is EGRC funding to relieve overcrowding. In conclusion, please consider our Suitland High School construction funding allocation from 0 to $27.5 million so that Prince George's County Public Schools can maintain the project construction schedule and receive state funding allocation closer to the 10-year average. Thank you for your time and consideration. Happy holidays.
Thank you, Doctor. Any questions for Dr. Goldson? Thank you very much for, Secretary Churchill.
Sure. Yeah, actually I do. Thank you, Dr. Golson. Good to see you, and some of your school projects, especially the modular school that's being built out in Pennsylvania, and that's a great project. But my question concerning your priority list is not the list itself, but it's actually what's catching my attention is the price tag on 3 of your projects that are over $200 million. And I don't know if that's just estimates or and I don't need to have an answer today, but just like to know what's particularly involved in that. Maybe there's some specialty construction or special issues that Prince is trying to accomplish and solve with these replacement schools.
I'd like to provide a response now. Go ahead, Mr. Matlock.
Yeah, so the Suitland project specifically right now is the estimated budget was over $200 million. Right now, our design budget looks like it will be under $200 million, but it has a special program there. It's a regional CVPA program that has a lot of specialty programming, an auditorium, dance studios, state-of-the-art performing arts equipment that's necessary to run this very, very popular regional program that we have several middle schools feeding into. So it's the CVPA is about 500 students attend that program, and these students go on to do great things, and it's a very well-recognized program. The other major project that we have rolling like that is our other high schools. One of them, the new Northern Area High School, is going to be a CTE hub as well as a comprehensive high school, and it's going to be a very large population. So we're providing space for all those CTE programs that we will be providing in the northern part of the county at that school, which would then relieve overcrowding and reduce utilization at many of our schools that are overutilized in the northern part of the county. And so it would relieve overcrowding at multiple schools and provide our programming, which is going to split into a northern CTE hub and a southern CTE hub, so that we don't have to have all those alterations at multiple schools around the county.
Okay, Mr. Secretary?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for those answers.
Sure. Any other questions? Well, thank you, Dr. Goldson. Good to see you. Have a great holiday.
Good to see you as well. Have a good one.
Bye-bye. Cassandra?
Mr. Chair, next we're adjusting the schedule a little bit to make sure that we can accommodate a scheduling conflict for Dr. Stephen Lockard, the superintendent, and John O'Neill, the chief operating officer. So we'll go to Carol next.
Carol, okay. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman Casemeyer, Superintendent Chaudhry, members of the IAC. Happy holidays to everybody. I'm Steve Lockard, Superintendent of Carroll County Public Schools. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you today. The Board of Education of Carroll County really appreciates the staff's 75% recommendation for $4,537,875 of funding for the Carroll County Career and Technology Center project. It's an incredible project, and we're so proud of our Career and Technology Center. It truly is an incredible program and opportunity for our students and our entire community, and we're so looking forward to the addition and renovation that's happening there. The Board of Education of Carroll County also appreciates the staff projections for an additional $2,527,559 of additional funds to bring the total amount of FY23 funding for the CTC project to $7,067,434. However, this amount of funding will put the Career Tech Center project dangerously close to running out of construction funding in FY23. Based on the current draw schedule, this amount of money from the state will leave the project with just a little over $500,000 remaining at the end of FY23. This amount of FY23 funding will require the project to receive the remaining $13,178,794 in state funding in FY24, or the project runs out of funding. So the Board of Education of Carroll County understands that these recommendations are based on historically low amount of $208 million for the school construction capital budget. However, the board is respectfully requesting that you consider increasing the funding for this project to the $10.5 million originally requested to ensure that this very important project remains on track over the next several years. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from anyone? Okay. We thank you for coming today.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Great holiday. Thank you very much. Arabia, if you want to comment on any of these testimonies, please do. Okay, Cassandra, who is up next?
Mr. Chair, next we have Montgomery County. We've got Dr. McKnight, Seth Adams, Adrian Karamijas, and Eugenia Dawson.
Welcome. Dr. McKnight is welcome. How are you? Dr. McKnight, can you hear me? Who's going to testify?
I think Dr. McKnight is trying to get unmuted.
Okay, there she is.
Yes.
Hey, how you doing?
Good morning, everyone. So good to see you. Good morning, Casemeyer and members of the Interagency Commission on School Construction and the staff. I am Onifa McKnight, Interim Superintendent for Montgomery County Public Schools. And with me here today are Dr. Eugenia Dawson, Chief of Finance and Operations, Mr. Seth Adams, Director of Facilities Management, and Ms. Adrian Karamijas, Director of Capital Planning and Real Estate. Thank you so much for this opportunity to present to you today our appeal of the IAC staff recommendations on state funding for Montgomery County Public Schools fiscal year 23 capital budget request. You have copies of our testimony, so I will not take the time to read it. However, I will make a few salient points with you today. Our revised state aid request of $231.26 million is based on current eligibility of projects approved by the Montgomery County Council on May of 2021. This state aid request represents projects funded through the Build to Learn Act of 2020, as well as through the statewide annual capital improvements program submission process. We anticipate that some project totals may be adjusted to maximize the Build to Learn Act funds. MCPS staff will continue to collaborate with IAC staff as we work through this new process. We continue to appreciate the flexibility provided to allow school systems to reconsider the funding source, either the annual state allocation or the Build to Learn Act funds, in order to maximize state construction funds for our capital projects. With the need to provide permanent seats for our students and to address the aging inventory of our older school facilities, funding for our CIP continues to be a complex issue in Montgomery County. Local funding sources are utilized in conjunction with state aid to fund our many capital and systemic projects. We know that some capital projects included in our state aid submission will be considered through the Build to Learn Act funding. However, we also understand that the IAC staff will review all projects regardless of state aid funding source, and therefore we want to stress the importance and need for the many capital and systemic projects included in our request. Many of our schools significantly are overutilized and require investment in aging infrastructure. The capital projects identified the Board of Education's FY 23 through 28 CIP and will address our continued need for classroom space through additions and new schools and improve our aging facilities and infrastructure through major capital projects and county-wide systemic projects. The COVID-19 health pandemic also has highlighted the importance of our funding for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, replacement program, and the need to maintain a more consistent upgrade and replacement schedule for HVAC overall. On November 15, 2021, we received the annual issues letter that identified outstanding questions and issues as a result of the designee's review of our state CIP submission. Our responses to those questions were submitted on November 30th of 2021 and are incorporated in our revised FY 23 state CIP request submission. We believe that there is adequate justification for all of the funds included in that request, with the exception of one roof replacement project that did not meet the age requirement for replacement, and therefore will be included in our state aid submission for FY 2024. With the removal of one roof replacement project and a technical adjustment to include one addition with remaining construction funds, our revised FY 23 state CIP request is $231.26 million. The initial IAC staff recommendation is to fund $19.25 million of our revised request. Therefore, we are appealing the balance of our request that was not recommended for state funding. Specifically with respect to our systemic projects, we are appealing the balance of funding for 6 HVAC projects and 10 roof replacement projects that received only partial funding from the IAC staff. Also, we are appealing for the full funding for 3 roof replacement projects that did not receive any state funding as a part of the IAC staff recommendation. With respect to capital projects, we have received approval for Build to Learn Act funds for 5 projects, reflected on page 2 of our testimony. As previously noted, some project totals may be adjusted based on construction cost increases and prevailing wage rates, and therefore we will continue to work with the IAC staff to finalize the allocation of state funds for these important projects. IAC staff does not recommend funding for any of our 6 remaining capital projects. Therefore, our appeal includes all 6 projects also noted on page 2 of our testimony. With respect to these 6 capital projects, we will continue to collaborate with the IAC staff to determine which funding source, whether the annual state allocation or Build to Learn Act funds, will be utilized to maximize our eligibility for state dollars. MCPS has seen a steady increase in enrollment from 2007 to 2008 through 2019 to 2020. However, the COVID-19 health pandemic has impacted our student enrollment, as well as the student enrollment of many public schools across the country. Our official September 30th, 2021 enrollment is 158,232, a one-year decrease of 2,332 students. While this represents a second year of decline in student enrollment, the decline is at a slower rate than MCPS experienced from the 1920 to the 2021 school year. We do believe that in the near future, we will experience student enrollment growth similar to our experience previous to the COVID-19 health pandemic. Total school system enrollment is projected to increase to 166,160 students by the 27-28 school year. This projection represents a slight slowdown in enrollment growth, in part due to the continued decline in resident births, which results in reduced kindergarten enrollment and smaller cohorts of students as they progress through the school system each year. Our student enrollment projections does not account for the current COVID-19 health pandemic. We believe this decline in enrollment will be temporary, and therefore the capacity projects included in the Board of Education's requested FY23-28 CIP still are warranted and must remain in their approved schedules. This cannot be accomplished without funding from the state. It is crucial that our state aid requests be approved to the order to meet the substantial capital funding needs for MCPS. We have significant construction needs, and now more than ever, we need strong financial support from our state and from our school construction program. Thank you so much for the opportunity to appear before you today and for your past support. We appreciate it. And happy holidays to you all.
Thank you, Dr. McKnight. Same to you. Any questions for the Montgomery County staff? Okay, thank you all again for coming and appearing. We appreciate it. Bye-bye. Oh, bye-bye. Cassandra, who's next?
Mr. Chair, next we have Baltimore City. We have Dr. Washington and Maurice Gaskins.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
Morning.
So I am Lynette Washington. I am the Chief Operating Officer for Baltimore City Public Schools, and I am joined with Maurice Gaskin, who is the Assistant Director for Design and Construction with City Schools. There's Maurice. Okay, great. So good morning, Mr. Casemeyer, the Interagency Commission on School Construction, and also the IAC staff. On behalf of Baltimore City Public Schools, the Board of Commissioner, and the Chief Executive Officer, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to address the members of the IAC for City Schools fiscal year 2023 capital improvement priorities. I want to start by saying that we greatly appreciate and thank the IAC for the $18.9 million based off of the 75% authorized funding recommended for City Schools FY 2023 CIP requests, in addition to the projected additional $5.3 million in the 100 authorized funding. However, today we are here to present appeals to the IAC designees FY 2023 75% CIP recommendation. Our talking points have been submitted, so I'm just going to briefly, for brevity's sake, go through a couple of points. City Schools FY 2023 request includes 22 projects totaling approximately $54 million in state funds. The FY 2023 request consists of 7 major projects, 3 which are renovation and addition projects, including Armistead Garden, Marie G. Faring, and Benjamin Franklin High School, which is a planning request. The remaining 4 major projects include the replacement of Furley Elementary School, renovating the Northeast building, the structural repairs at Roland Park Elementary School, and the planning for the renovation of Edmondson High School. The FY 2023 request also includes 15 systemic projects that are HVAC projects, windows, fire alarms, elevators, including Armistead Garden, Marie G. Faring, and Benjamin Franklin High School, which is a plan.
It's okay. Go ahead.
So we're going to use the rest of our appeal just to jump into a few of our projects that I just want to highlight that did not receive full funding, or they received partial funding. So we had 5 projects that were recommended for approval of the $18.9 million. 17 of those projects were recommended for funding, and 4 of the projects were not recommended. So 17 projects were not recommended for funding, and 4 of the projects were not recommended for full funding. One of them I want to highlight is the Northeast building. This building is a project that was recommended for renovation. Right now, we have a middle school program, Vanguard, which is housed in the Thurgood Marshall building. This is a very large building. It's generally used for swing space, and it's inadequate for the program. The renovation project for the Northeast building would accommodate 591 middle school students as one of 3 standalone middle school programs within our entire district. The renovation would accommodate also 300 additional Priority 1 middle school students through the middle school student choice process. Completing this project will assist the district in vacating the Thurgood Marshall building when the Northeast and also Furley Elementary School, which is also located in that building, when the Furley building is renovated, those 2 schools will move to their new facilities, and the Thurgood Marshall building will be surplus to the city. The request was a total of $5 million. And so we received partial funding, but the partial funding is not adequate enough in order to address the needs of the project and also the project schedule. The other 2 projects I want to highlight are CTE projects. It's a part of a larger academic blueprint plan. The first one is Benjamin Franklin High School, which is for the request is for planning for renovation and addition. The local planning is requested for this project to support Baltimore City Schools career and technology education 4-year career readiness plan. By school year 2024 and 25, the goal is to offer 3 new pathways to future students who attend Ben Franklin High School. So planning approval is required to proceed with this project and ensure that the construction is completed and the pathways are in place according to the academic blueprint schedule. The second one is Edmondson High School. Local planning is requested for this project also as a part of a CTE plan. The plan's objective is to align high wage and high skill jobs for city school CTE programs. Again, just like Benjamin Franklin, the goal is to offer additional 4 new pathways for future students who attend Edmondson West Side Vocational Technical School. In addition, the plan is to house a CTE program within 1 building. So currently we have the CTE program located within 2 buildings. One is in the West Side building, and classroom spaces are also located within Edmondson High School. So it's to put it in 1 building. Planning approval is required to proceed with this project and ensure that the construction is complete and that pathways are in place according to the schedule. In addition, this project will help to confirm the CTE program function more efficiently within 1 building. We also had 15 other systemic buildings projects that were recommended for approval. The projects were identified as City Schools' most critical systemic capital projects. These systemic renovations focus on improvements throughout Baltimore City that are required to maintain the structural and functional capacities of the schools. In addition, they address urgent needs that cannot be delayed until the schools are replaced or renovated to ensure the continued occupancies of these schools. In our talking points, we talk a little bit about some of our accomplishment and challenges, but that is not something that I'm going to go in detail with. It's in our talking points. In closing, I just want to say thank you all again for the continued support in addressing the facility needs of our Baltimore City. But I also want to reiterate that City Schools' need for state funding and support for our capital projects is still very great. And we continue to look to the state to assist us in providing the necessary resources for our facilities.
Thank you, Ms. Washington. We appreciate your brevity. Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Washington or Mr. Gaskins? Thank you for coming today. Wish you the best. Have a great holiday. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Cassandra, who is next?
Mr. Chair, Maryland School for the Blind is next, but they're having some connectivity issues. So we're going to go ahead and go to Frederick. We have Paul Lebo, Brad Young, and Jan Gardner.
Oh, okay. Good to see you again, County Executive. Who's going to speak today? You're on mute, County Executive.
Thank you. I think we're going to start off with Brad Young, if he's on here. If he's not.
We have Mr. Lebo, but I don't see Mr. Young.
Mr. Young not joined yet?
No.
All right. I'll go ahead and start, okay? And it may not make our flow as good as it would have been otherwise, but I think you can appreciate that. So good morning. I'm County Executive Jan Gardner, and I wanted to participate today to express my strong support for Frederick County Public Schools fiscal year 23 school construction priority order of projects. I want to assure you that Frederick County government is fully prepared to provide our local share to the projects for our CIP funding. And I also want to express my appreciation to the state commitment to the Built to Learn funding for Frederick County, which will really help us to further accelerate and advance additional projects this year. And I'm committed to providing the local match for the Built to Learn projects in addition to the CIP. Now, school construction has been a priority of my administration, and we work extremely closely with our school system and the Board of Education to use our local and state funding responsibly and prudently. And I appreciate the funding commitment the IAC makes towards our projects. As you know, Frederick County is a growing community. Even with the pandemic, the number of new residential permits are up. Our student enrollment is up with more than 2,000 newly enrolled students this year alone. And so for a county our size, that's the equivalent of adding 3 brand new elementary schools in 1 year. And next year, we're forecasted to need another 3 new elementary schools equivalent to just keep pace with our enrollment growth. So we're challenged to provide in time needed public school seats with already approved housing and the associated enrollment growth. So it's a good thing that people want to move to Frederick County. We're a nice place to live, but we are challenged with school capacity. At the same time, we have aging school infrastructure, and it's our desire to complete both new schools and renovation modernization projects and to not prioritize one over the other. So it's important that we have state funding to help us keep pace with our requests and our prioritized needs. So my desire is to accelerate school construction in Frederick County and advance projects even more quickly to address severe school overcrowding and provide adequate facilities for all of our students. So in Frederick County, we do forward fund the state share of approved CIP projects to keep them on schedule. But we only certainly are able to forward fund the state share when we have a firm commitment of planning approval. So we know that state share is going to be forthcoming. So I look to the IAC to partner with us to keep our CIP projects advancing by reimbursing state share forward funded as requested by our school system. I will say with the 75% CIP allocation to Frederick County, slightly over $8.9 million, I am disappointed because that is only a third of our request. So we are appealing to the IAC to reconsider our funding this year, prioritizing new seats in a growing county over systemic maintenance projects and other modernization projects for building systems and technology really simply kicks the can down the road. And I'm sure that you hear this from others, but we really do need additional state support to keep our schools on track. History does show that an investment in Frederick County is money well spent. We have a proven track record of responsibly managing projects, meeting timelines, using prototype designs, forward funding state share, and maintaining our schools to meet the state's strict maintenance standards. So we do appeal to you to ask you to increase our allocation and to help us keep our school construction projects moving forward. So thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, my name is Paul Lebo. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Frederick County Public Schools. I apologize. Our board president, Mr. Young, is having some technical difficulties, so I'm going to just include some comments from him, and then I'll just cover some of our specific appeals requests. So I think the first thing I just want to talk about briefly is obviously you can see by the participation of our county executive, our Board of Education and school system is very fortunate to have an excellent working relationship, and we work closely with her staff as we really develop our CIP and ensure that we are having adequate funding to support our critical capacity needs. I think that is one of the things I want to emphasize a little more that County Executive Gardner touched on. Our September 2021 enrollment was 45,300 students, which was a growth of over 2,000 students. So as many other counties throughout the state experienced a decline that they haven't recovered from the pandemic, Frederick County has continued to grow even throughout this pandemic. And we are anticipating, again, over 1,000 additional students as we start the 2022-2023 school year with 46,360 students. So our need for additional classroom space is critical. Enrollment projections for the next school year do indicate that 23 of our 68 schools will be over 100% of the state rated capacity, with 9 of those schools over 120% of their capacity. Capacity needs are found at schools throughout the district, but most often in our high growth areas along the I-70, I-270 corridors and on the east and west side of our Frederick City area. As I just mentioned, obviously the need for new seats is critical for us. That is where we have directed most of our capital resources over the last few years. And again, most recently, we just opened Blue Heron Elementary School that opened this fall, and it is already at capacity. Again, to just highlight the continued growth in Frederick County. We are underway with Waverly Elementary School, which will open this fall. It is our largest elementary school and was really brought forward as a unique design with over 1,000 student elementary school capacity because of lack of additional land in the area to accommodate another school and the growing Frederick City student population. And so we're excited that that is going to open as well this fall. Specific to our request for the fiscal year 23 capital budget, we did include a request for the remaining funds of the Thurmont Elementary School limited renovation project, as well as local planning approval for the first phase of the Monocacy Elementary School limited renovation project. I did want to highlight those two projects in particular because while we do have growth, we do have an aging inventory that we need to continue to address as we tackle our capacity challenges as well. For the Monocacy Elementary project, the IAC staff summary of recommendations indicate that this project was classified as a U, indicating that there are outstanding issues. I did just want to highlight that it is our understanding that it was classified as a U because the educational specifications have not yet been approved and they are under review by IAC staff. We fully anticipate that the IAC staff will approve these educational specifications and look forward to the IAC doing the same and granting local planning for this project. Our next request is for capital funds to replace the Ballinger Creek Middle School roof. It is a 31-year-old roof that is in desperate need of repair and replacement, and we urge the Commission to fund this request as recommended by the IAC staff. Finally, I do want to note we have 2 other projects that are included in our fiscal year 2023 capital program that don't necessarily get seen by the IAC, but I think it's critical to mention because it shows the investment by our county. And this is where we will be requesting funding through the Built to Learn Act. The 2 projects are for Green Valley and Valley Elementary, which are critical to meeting both our renovation and capacity needs. With a state rated capacity of 499, Green Valley Elementary School is currently operating at 138% of capacity. And it is anticipated that Green Valley Elementary will be at 158% of capacity next school year, with the need for 300 additional seats. In addition, the Green Valley Elementary School is over 50 years old and it has never had any significant renovations in the building. Valley Elementary is a 54-year-old building with no renovations either. It has a facility condition index of 52%, and it is currently over capacity as well. The request for local planning and Built to Learn funding for these projects will be submitted in the next 30 days. We've been working closely with the IAC staff and staff from the Maryland Stadium Authority, and we will look forward to hopefully receiving local planning and Built to Learn funding for both of these projects moving forward. In closing, I just want to highlight we have worked creatively to reduce schools construction costs by using prototype designs, value engineering, partnerships in our community, and using different construction delivery methods that are appropriate for the projects that we are conducting. As I mentioned, our work with the county executive and the county council is critical. The county, as an example, funded an addition to Oakdale Middle School that was funded completely with local funds and did not have any state participation. And that project utilized a modified design build methodology, which we had much success with. And we look to do another locally only funded project for our Crestwood Middle School and appreciate our county support in that as well. Frederick County Public Schools feel strongly about the ability to provide a proper academic and instructional program, as well as the ability for our students to achieve high standards, depends on adequate school facilities. We ask the Commission to continue to be an active partner with Frederick County Public Schools and our Frederick County government and fully approve our FY23 school construction requests. And I appreciate the time today and stand ready to answer any questions that the Commission may have.
Thank you, County Executive and Mr. Lebo. Anyone have any questions for Frederick County? We thank you for coming today. Have a great holiday. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Happy holidays to all of you.
Likewise. Cassandra, who do we have next?
We have Maryland School for the Blind, Mr. Chair, Superintendent Rob Hare.
Okay, welcome.
Morning, everybody. I'm Rob Hare, Superintendent, as introduced. And I just want to start by thanking you for this opportunity to testify, of course, before the committee. You have my written testimony. I won't read the whole thing, but a special thank you to all of you, Mr. Gorell, members of the IAC, and a special thanks to Fred Mason and Brett Waskiewicz, who've been so helpful and supportive as I've had many, many questions, even calling me after hours to assist me with our planning for this construction. Where we are at the Maryland School for the Blind is we're in the last quarter of our master plan for the campus. And to put it simply, this would not have been possible, the work that we've gotten so far done for these special students, without the support of the IAC. The current construction project includes phase 5, which is primarily residential. It replaces a couple of our residential buildings, but it also replaces the Braille book repository. This is where we house all of the Braille books that the local school systems use across the state. We sort of operate as a library for algebra and literature textbooks that everybody uses. So this building would replace all of those buildings. My specific appeal to the IAC is for two things. One is for a reconsideration of, or maybe it's being considered still, but the net funding that was proposed so far is around $13.6 million for the total project. Our current estimates of cost are around 28 million. So we calculate that the share from the state would be around 26 million. It's all in my written testimony. The annual draw that we're requesting is 9 million, which would be an increase from our original request. I understand that there are budgetary constraints, but of course I have to put it out there that this would be extremely helpful for us to keep our projects on track. So there are three reasons that I want to present to you why these needs are so urgent. First of all, MSB has a very limited time window. And I think most of you are familiar that we are in the IAC until 2028 when our legislation to participate sunsets. We hope to have not only this project, but a couple of other projects that will bring us over the finish line and help us complete this campus master plan that we've been working so diligently upon. Again, without the help of the IAC, this would not have been possible. Also, the urgency of these Braille books. The building that they're in is very, very leaky and it's decrepit, and the books are getting ruined, some of them. We have no other place to put them, obviously, but hundreds of thousands of dollars. The cost of Braille books, an algebra textbook can cost upwards of $20,000, $25,000 for a single Braille textbook. We have no other place to put them. And through this consolidated building, we hope to be able to address that need. And the other urgency is that the students really need accessible facilities. These dorms that they're currently in are aging. They're going to need new roofs. They're going to need new fixtures and appliances. Everything is getting old and it needs to be replaced. In fact, if we spent all the money that we need to spend on maintenance over the next 10 years, according to a study, a facility study that we did, it would cost around $4 million to keep these dorms and the Braille textbook library, to maintain them or to do the roofs and all the upgrades. That money is kind of like an old car. You don't want to spend money on an old car. You want to get a new car that's going to do better and be more compliant with current codes and regulations that would have the generational impact on the students that keep coming to our school. Our enrollment continues to go up. We are anticipating 20 to 30 more students this school year in spite of the pandemic. We don't know why that is. We know that many schools are still struggling to keep their enrollment up, but we're not having any problem with that. We want to assure the state that we are good stewards. We have a good plan in place. We've developed the preliminary cash flow for this project. We have pre-approval of a bridge loan. We have a plan for the principled use of our very small but important endowment money for millions of dollars to help support this effort. We also have preliminary contacts with donors as well as granting. Since we have no other way to raise money for our school, we can't levy taxes, we can't raise local money. We have to go for private donations as well. And the final thing that I just want to emphasize, and I think we all know this, but MSB serves the very least among us. These students who are blind and have multiple disabilities come from across the state of Maryland, from every corner of the state. These dorms are pre-ADA. They're not up to code. They don't have the lifts or the other equipment that we need to serve this very special population. And in a way, because our student population is so diverse, our school provides some leveling of the equity issues that we're facing as a nation right now for many students who otherwise don't have access to high quality educational services. So we appreciate the partnership. We value the input from all of you to help us to get the pricing right in this volatile time of pricing going really crazy right now. We're trying to keep the cost down, but in the meantime, it would just be such a disservice to our students not to get as much of these projects done before 2028. Thank you so much for your consideration, and we appreciate everything that you're doing for the state.
Thank you, Mr. Hare. Thank you for your compliments. Any question for Mr. Hare? Thank you. Thanks for taking the time to come. Bye-bye. Okay, Cassandra, who's next?
Mr. Chair, your last LEA presentation today is Charles County. You have Stephen Andritz and Michael Heim.
Welcome, gentlemen. Good to see you.
Good morning. Thank you. I'm Mike Heim. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Supporting Services for Charles County Public Schools. And as mentioned, I'm joined this morning by Steve Andritz, who's our Director of Planning and Construction. First of all, we'd like to thank you for this opportunity to make an appeal for the funding that we've requested from the state. And we also appreciate the prior funding that we have received from the state, which has allowed us to do a number of great projects over the last several years by addressing enrollment growth in our county, but also by addressing some aging facilities in our county. And three of the last major projects that we have completed have taken care of adding capacity at schools, again, addressing aging facilities, but more importantly, two of those three schools which we have completed projects on are enclosing open space schools that were part of the 1970s design and that concept of the open space concept. So again, we are very grateful of past support we have received from the state. And we're also very appreciative for FY23 will be the first year that we qualify for funding from the enrollment growth and relocatable classroom based on the fact that over the last 5 years, we have 250 relocatable classrooms located around various campuses in Charles County. And also, we're also appreciative of receiving money from the Healthy Schools grant to address a roof at one of our aging facilities, which by receiving money from the Healthy Schools grant, we were able to take that off of our CIP request, which had been on our CIP request for the last several years. So again, appreciative of the money we receive from the capital improvement program, but also the other grants and funding sources that are out there. However, we would like to make an appeal to receive additional funding for the FY23 CIP request. We are projected to receive $6.9 million in funding for FY23, which is below our 10-year average of $9.8 million. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Steve Andritz, again, who's our Director of Planning and Construction, so he can speak more specifically about those projects. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Casemeyer, IAC members, IAC staff, Mr. Burrell, if he's watching as well. Thank you for this opportunity to be here and to appeal our FY23 CIP. As Mr. Heim was just mentioning, we are a growing system. We are seeing rebound already from the decreases in enrollment that most school systems saw with the pandemic. We saw a 107 student increase this year, not as much as we projected, but still an increase, and we do perceive that that will continue. We are always looking to present a balanced CIP that addresses our older buildings through renovations or modernizations, systemic projects to keep buildings up and running and in good conditions through environmental air quality and so on with roofs and windows and HVAC, and we're also looking to address our capacity needs with new schools. We submitted a CIP request that was 15 total projects and $48 million. And we realized that there has been a reduction in the overall funding that has been presented by the governor. And so what we've attempted to do is to present to you the highest priority projects for appeal, and there are 4 of them. We do appreciate the 75% funding recommendations for the $5.4 million that is out there out of the 6.9 that was targeted. But again, as Mr. Heim mentioned, that is $3 million less than our 10-year average at $9.8 million. So we also wanted to highlight that we have submitted the responses to the issue letters, and we continue to work through any details with the IAC staff that are necessary. We also have provided and continue to have local support from our county commissioners for funding of all of our projects that are in our requested FY23 CIP. Additionally, our county commissioners do forward fund the state share of projects to allow them to proceed in a normal construction fashion once we receive planning and initial funding. But we want to just highlight a couple of things. The first project that we're appealing is the T.C. Martin Elementary School modernization project. This is a 1967 school. It was a prototype design that we have worked through. We had 5 of them. This is the 4th one that is now being renovated over the years. We're going through the design process now. Our DD documents were submitted to DGS in the beginning of December 6th. So we're in the 60% design phase right now, and we are working towards a design ready and a bid date this spring because we have a swing space that we need to move these students into. So the current funding recommendation was for about $2.6 million through May at the end, and we're actually appealing for the full balance of funding that was requested. So we're appealing for $7,627,450 on this project. Again, this will also increase the school. This is on our eastern side of our county, but we do have growth in that area. So we are proposing to go from a 3-round classroom school to a 4-round classroom school, which does increase the overall state-rated capacity by about 200 students. Our second appeal is for the J.C. Parks Elementary School full-day kindergarten edition. This was a request for planning and funding. We have planning money from the county to start the design. We have just finished solicitation of small architecture firms for small projects and intend to award that and begin the design immediately. But with the impacts of the blueprint and full-day pre-K, we will be implementing full-day pre-K next year. And so this is a real impact to the school system. So rather than make sure that we do the kindergarten edition that's catching up from the full-day kindergarten program, we're trying to incorporate full-day pre-K as part of this. So the planning approval and the funding approval for the next 2 projects are important to make sure that we'll be able to meet the needs that are being requested through the blueprint. And so that funding amount is $2,125,000, as well as planning approval. The appeal number 3 is for Walter J. Mitchell Elementary School. This is a 1965 school, a bit of an unusual shape to it. But again, it is for full-day kindergarten edition that would include full-day pre-K. It is for planning and for construction. The value of the construction request was $3,517,000. And the final appeal is for middle school number 9. Charles County is still a growing county. We are growing in the southern area of the state. We have actively growing plan unit development in St. Charles that continues to move forward, that does not have any restrictions on the ability to get seats for adequate public facilities, regardless of what the schools look like. They're able to move forward based on their Docket 90 agreement at 300 units a year, no matter what the conditions are in the schools, if they're overcrowded or not. Additionally, we are now moving in the town of La Plata. We have 2 incorporated jurisdictions in Charles County. The town of La Plata is the larger of the 2. The town of Indian Head is the smaller. The town of La Plata has a large-scale planned development called Heritage Green that is moving forward right now. It's 3,200 units. They are actually moving forward and installing infrastructure now. And as we all know, developers do not commit to put infrastructure in the ground if they're not serious to start putting the houses in, because obviously the financial commitments that go along with that. So there will be impacts, not just from St. Charles, but now also through the town of La Plata from Heritage Green. So we will continue to see growth in two areas and create pressure on Waldorf and on the La Plata area. So the middle school number 9 is going to be located on property that's given to us by St. Charles as part of their development agreement of Docket 90. We're proposing a 975 student school that will serve special needs as well as ESOL and other programs. And we are looking for the appeal here for planning funding so that we can move forward. The county has in the request this year that we've submitted to them, the design funds to start in FY23 to start designing this project. But obviously we need the state planning approval to coincide with that. So those are our 4 items. And then just to highlight the items that we've already been given funding on, there are 4 items, and this is all part of our testimony, but I'll just highlight Eva Turner Elementary School is our #1 priority funding. We are asking for the final year of funding. This school is completely open. It finished and opened to students in July. The students showed up on August 30th, and we're looking for the $2.6 million that's owed on the final year of funding from the state. Next is Westlake Roof. This is a project that's completely designed, ready to go. We've been talking to the designers about the bid documents and the dates to go out, coinciding with the funding coming July 1. Next is Indian Head boiler replacement, and the design is ongoing for that. That's a little less than $900,000 there. And then the 4th one is TC Martin Elementary School. So this is the big project that we're talking about because of our swing space that is currently being used by a project that will vacate this year. We need that money to support this project, to move them into that swing space, to keep things actively being used and moving forward. So again, on TC Martin, this would be our first year of construction funding. The DD submissions were sent to DGS December 6th, and we are appealing the balance of funding on construction there for $7,627,450. So that concludes my comments, and I'll open it up if there are any questions.
Thank you, gentlemen. Any questions for Charles County? Thank you very much for coming. Happy holiday season.
Thank you, and happy holidays as well.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too. Okay, Arabia.
Yes.
Are there any questions for Arabia about anything that the county's presented? Linda, do you have a question? You're on mute. Linda, you're on mute.
A comment of what I've heard from several of the counties. It seems like CTE schools, one, cost a lot more money, and that they're in a great need from Carroll County to Prince George's to the city, and I'm sure other places. Not that there is money, in the IAC, fund to do it. I just don't know if it is appropriate or as a past senator to suggest to the state that they should think about CTE funding as a different priority or a different place, because we're hearing that this is becoming a greater need across the state. So not that it will affect any of the votes because there's just not money there, but it's just an observation that I wanted to make.
Yeah, it's obvious from the comments that that's the case. Did you want to comment, Arabia, on that fact at all about the cost of CTE?
No, but we do have technical experts, Fred Mason and Brett. If they want to comment, they would probably be more suited to do so.
Good morning, Fred Mason with MSDE. Our gross area baselines do allow for a higher square footage per student for students in CTE programs. So that does translate into increased maximum state funding for comprehensive schools with heavy CTE focus. And then for a school that is entirely CTE, such as the one in Carroll County, it's an even higher square footage per student. So that's the way those programs are given additional consideration currently.
Hey, Linda, I'll mention it to the assessment group on the school cost. Although we had our last meeting yesterday, I'll bring that up to the chair. Okay, we're on to item 4. Jamie, want to talk about air conditioning?
Mr. Chair, can you make a motion to approve the 75%
Oh,
on item 3?
That would be helpful. We didn't even get to vote. You know, I got lost on the question. I'm sorry. Ravi, you want to make the motion?
Yes, sir. To approve the fiscal year 2023 75% capital improvement program allocations and planning approvals for each school system and the Maryland School for the Blind, as shown in the attached summary of project requests and recommendations, and to authorize IAC staff to make adjustments to project allocations to avoid over and underfunding of a project. Funding allocations to projects with a funding status of U are contingent upon resolution of outstanding issues.
Any questions about the motion? Do I hear a motion? Linda, thank you. And a second? Secretary Churchill? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? Ruby, I want to thank you and your staff for all the work I'm sure went into getting to this point. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, I think I'm caught up now. Jamie, you want to talk about Baltimore City air conditioning?
I sure do. Thank you, Chair Casemeyer, members of the commission. It's good to see you all. It is also good to be talking about projects that are getting done. We heard a lot about projects that need to be done. So here's the getting done part. I am before you to deliver item 4. It's an information item, the extra $15 million for Baltimore City HVAC project status report. That item, number 4, can be found on page 52 of the meeting agenda. As of December 1st, 2021, we have 16 of 19 projects, or 84% that are operational, leaving 3 in progress. Of those 3, 2 are in construction and 1 is in design. Of those 3 projects, all 3 are more than 2 months behind the original completion schedule. Callaway Elementary, currently in contract negotiations, is anticipated to be completed in fall 2022. Thomas Johnson Elementary Middle, the air handling units all have arrived now. There were some supply chain challenges associated with those AHUs. And most work will be done over breaks, Christmas and spring break. However, the largest unit will have to wait until after changeover and be installed in summer 2022. And finally, Windsor Hills Elementary Middle, same situation. Most of the work has been completed and will be finished up over breaks, but will need to be completed in the summer of 2022 after the changeover. For contract status, we have 15 million of the 15 million allocated, 13.5 million or 90% contracted, and we are now up to $10 million expended. That's about 67%. With that said, I'll stand for questions.
Any questions for Jamie? Okay, thanks, Jamie.
Thank you.
Item number 5, we've delayed for some time. It's been removed from the agenda. So, Brett, do you want to talk about unspent state allocations?
Sure. Good morning, Chair Casemeyer and members of the commission. Earlier, we heard from the LEAs regarding their funding challenges, and while the Built to Learn Act and increased funding that Healthy Schools provided this year helped greatly, some of the LEAs still need financial support. The purpose of this report is to highlight those LEAs who are able to maximize state support by designing projects in a timely fashion, constructing them in accordance with their design standards, and punching out the projects quickly and efficiently so that the students in their district benefit from a truly completed project. These LEAs often have very limited staff who all wear multiple hats. It is the commitment that these professionals display day in and day out that makes us all proud to be a part of their team. The report you see in front of you is from our financial software system, and it goes back to fiscal year 2001. The report focuses on new authorizations from the state and how much of that money is currently unspent. The unspent amount shown may be under contract, but work under contract doesn't help the students of that school. Work that is completed does. Getting all the base contract work complete, including the punch list, should be as important as getting the project bid and under contract. Incomplete punch list work continues to rear its ugly head during maintenance effectiveness assessments, often skewing the results due to incomplete punch list work. The results of this report are very promising. 20 of the 24 LEAs boast spending at least 99% of their state authorizations through the last completed fiscal year of 2021. 7 of them have spent all of their state funding. But even more impressive, 14 of the 24 LEAs have less than $125,000 in unspent state authorizations from fiscal year 20 and older, a true testament to their ability to maximize state participation and punch a project out. These 14 LEAs include Allegheny, Anne Arundel, Calvert, Caroline, Carroll, Dorchester, Frederick, Garrett, Hartford, Kent, Somerset, Talbot, Washington, and Worcester. Unfortunately, the report also shows the other side of the coin. There is $246.7 million of unspent authorizations from last fiscal year and older. That is almost a complete fiscal year worth of state funding that hasn't been put to work. Queen Anne's unspent funding, you may remember, is from an approved roofing project in which the bids came in significantly higher than anticipated due to the pandemic. They were forced to resend the project and are bidding again in early 2022 in hopes of a more favorable result. Baltimore County currently shows $17.8 million in unspent fiscal 21 authorizations. A $5.3 million reimbursement request has been submitted for the Colgate Elementary School replacement project after this report was created. The bulk of the remaining unspent fiscal 21 authorization is for the Chadwick Elementary replacement project, which is currently under construction. Prince George's County and Baltimore City combined account for $205.8 million, or 83% of the state's old authorizations. Prince George's County currently accounts for almost half of all of the state's old unspent authorizations. Large percentages of unspent funding in the semi-recent fiscal years, which are shown on the table, tend to represent a longer than normal design phase. Unspent authorizations not shown on the table, which are older than fiscal year 2018, illustrate an inability to properly close out projects and final pay contractors. 16 million of Prince George's unspent state authorizations is older than fiscal year 2018, and 28 million of Baltimore City's unspent state authorizations is older than fiscal year 2018. A good rule of thumb is that construction dollars lose roughly 5% of their value every fiscal year that they sit on the shelf. Given the current construction market due to the pandemic, combined with the inflation the country is seeing right now, we believe that this year more than ever, it is important that state funding is spent in an expeditious manner and does not lose value at a record-setting rate by sitting on the shelf. The Field Operations Division of the IAC offers technical assistance to all the LEAs on these matters, as well as on matters related to facilities portfolio management. A majority of the LEAs have accepted our invitation to collaborate on solutions development, while a few have shown hesitation. We will continue to extend the offer and share best practices that we see serving LEAs well. If you have questions about the data presented here today, it will be my pleasure to answer them. And if you have specific questions, we will be happy to coordinate with the LEAs to provide answers at a future IAC meeting. As a reminder, this is an informational item and there is no additional action necessary. I now stand for questions.
Any questions for Brett? What about Howard County? Where do they get? What's their situation?
That is also a project that is currently under construction. They have 2 very large high school projects going on, and that money is anticipated to be have reimbursement requests sent in the very near future.
Okay. Any other questions for Brett? Thank you, Brett. Appreciate it. The last item was to be a report, excuse me, on the assessment and funding of schools that many staff attended. Due to the fact that Bob is not able to be here today, we'll hold that off till they had their last meeting yesterday, and Bob will comment on that situation and give a report on the work group next month when he returns. I just want to say that the staff of the IAC, many were on those calls, and I thought they really did an outstanding job in terms of how complicated that information is and how voluminous that information is. They were very impressive, I thought. Is there any other business anyone wants to bring up? Well, thank you all for your help this year, and I wish you a very happy holiday and a very happy new year. And thank you for everything. You all take care. Do I hear a motion that we adjourn?
It'll be me.
So moved. Second by Ms. Everhart. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
You take care of yourselves. See you next year, I guess. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Happy holidays.
Thank you, Mr.
You
Chair.
too.
Holidays to everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.